Welcome to the Fellas Podcast, the ultimate Formula One podcast for fans by fans, where we discuss all the happenings in the world of Formula One. Now, let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Fellas. This time we're going to talk about the race at Monza. However, before we jump into it, we ask that you like, share, and subscribe so you can keep up with all things the Fellas. All right, gentlemen. What was your take on the Monza race, from a general perspective? Ralph?
I think it was good. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was a good race.
Yeah, it was a good race. I think we have a lot to talk about today, Ray. I think there's some things that we need to get off our chest because this is the next race. So here today, I want to hear what you have to say about Red Bull versus McLaren and Ferrari. What is your take? Mr. Ray, on those.
I would say this, that McLaren has a faster car right now in the pack in comparison to Red Bull and in comparison to Ferrari. So I think,
that hurt, didn't it? Yeah.
It's just again, the proof was in the pudding, right? As the phrase goes, right? They showed up and they showed that they have a car that is capable now to run with the front of the pack. And I want to say that, it seems that consistently they seem to be now, since they've come back, the car that's running towards the front, while the others are kind of having hiccups in what they're doing, right? So yes, McLaren has shown up. Yes. Okay. You guys happy now?
Somewhat. I mean, I give you credit for not trying to kick the ball down to the next race again, the tire, I should say, because they're saying, I'm here now, bruh. I'm here now. And they're getting on. McLaren, as far as the capability and the packaging put on the car is running, right? The car is running. So they are, they're ready to rock and roll. Right. So
is it just McLaren though? I mean,
I'll say this. The others. Right, so I'll say this. Not to interrupt you, but I'll just say this. From what I've seen over the last two races, I think Mercedes has not found a standard theme or constant theme with their car yet. Right. Mm-hmm. It still can be iffy when they start out for each race. And if they work it through, they find the balance they're looking for, and they drop somewhere between, and they're not. Mercedes right now, from the thing for me, is not in the 1 to 2 range yet. They're like 3, right, and 4 that they're on there, right. And now, and what I can say now with Red Bull, their car is in trouble, right, because they can't find a balance on the car whatsoever right now. So so they're kind of out of the picture. Well, they're languishing down there because Mercedes, Red Bull, and I want to say Ferrari, if it's not strategy, right, they have to fall back in strategy for their car, right, for them to win, right? And whereas McLaren, I think they can just run it on pace, right? They can have faulty strategy, but they can run on pace. Once they get up there, once they get in front, they can run on pace. And there's another thing. Sorry, not to interrupt, but there's another feature that I realize that's impacting all of them, right? And that's the car running in dirty air behind somebody else. Right, it has impact on that. But I think McLaren has showed up. I think Mercedes, they come and the car is never, when you look from the qualifying, it's never, practice and qualifying. They kind of search for the balance, and then they hit it during qualifying to some extent, right? That they get the car there, and then they use that plus their strategy to move forward. And it's the same thing with I would say with Ferrari, right? They kind of right now they kind of figure out something for qualifying, but they use a strategy to move them forward.
I think McLaren does need strategy because that's what caused Oscar to win.
We'll get into that one.
I'm just saying. I'm not going to go deep, but I'm just saying they do need strategy as also.
Well, it's a team thing, right? It's if nothing, if you have not, my opinion, if you do not believe it by now, it's not an individual sport; it's a team sport.
Oh, it is,
right? Because but there are people that don't realize that because they just see the driver, right? And the driver has a role, that is true. So does the people that support the driver have a role, and all of them come together will then help the driver propel themselves to the best possible position that they can go to, right? So I just Yeah, I think I think McLaren has whatever package they have in the car right now. They have the faster car, and it's funny that they're faster than the manufacturer that they get the engine from. So
well, that comes down to aerodynamics and all the other setup, right? But I believe, Ralph, I don't know necessarily if the inertia piece of equipment that you mentioned is the main culprit. The T valve, the inertia T valve. But nevertheless, right now they're struggling. Even on qualifying, they couldn't get past Ferrari, Mercedes, or McLaren, right? And it could have been a fluke, but we've seen in the last 6 to 7 races, Red Bull has been struggling. And McLaren has definitely said to everyone, hey, it's now we got 8 races left. Red Bull, watch out. And I think right now it's up in the air. It's Red Bull's to lose. I will say that it's Red Bull's to lose, but McLaren is definitely coming for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, Max made a mention of that they had to turn the engine down, so he wasn't running at maximum horsepower. Don't know yet if that's true or if, that's just a smokescreen for something else. But we're gonna to paraphrase Ray, we'll see by the next race if Max, if Red Bull continues to languish, Right. But they something's definitely wrong with that car. It's not the same. It's not performing like it was in the beginning of the season, and it's exciting that it's not.
They did mention for this race, right, that because of the cost cap, they didn't really come with any new aero bits for the car. What they did was modify their existing aero bits. So if you look at their wing on the back of the car, they cut out chunks out of it. So they try to take a high downforce wing and make it a low downforce wing because they didn't want to incur more cost from the cost cap, right? They didn't want to go out. So they cut out pieces of that. So, they were trying to, that too. But I still think that the car was understeering. They still didn't get the balance of the car, right? And I think, it's a problem they're gonna have to figure out since they removed that gadget from their car. They're gonna have to then reevaluate and refigure out how to reset the car in order for it to be there, or the drivers have to now adjust their driving style in order to get it. So
I was thinking about I wasn't sure if it was you or Simon, if you guys said it last race, about Sergio's performance, if it's going to pick up as a result of that device having, that they had to take it off the car or not. But this race, I was like, all right, it doesn't seem like that's a factor because
he was right behind. He was right behind Verstappen.
Yeah, he was.
If anything, he has improved.
Right. Okay. Yeah, he finished eighth. Okay.
Verstappen finished 7th, right?
No, 6th. George was 7th. George was 7th.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So, let's jump into this, right? Because I wanted to bring up some things from the beginning. The track was resurfaced, right? And they changed the curbing. That was a big talking point about from some of the drivers saying that they weren't consulted on that. But did you guys read that the safety car goes out and does track reconnaissance before each race, and it crashed, right? And it crashed in the Parabolica, right? What I find interesting is that Hamilton's replacement, Antonelli, right? He was driving George's car. Where did he crash? Parabolica, right? So, and I was watching through some of the practices. That it seemed like the track needed time is either they adjusted their approach to it or the track needed time to rubber in, right? Because there were a couple other drivers that, their car got loose within that same area, right? And, I think that kind of, going back to the crash, I think it put George on the back foot, right? Because they had to rebuild his car, right? And, usually when they have to rebuild a car during the race, it's race weekend, you can never be 100%, right? Because you're running against time. So you're trying to check, but you're still running against time. Right. So I think that kind of, that kind of hurt George on, in the race. I would want to contribute that to his performance.
Right.
So, but, it's just interesting that, that corner was tricky for a lot of drivers doing practice.
Well, I mean, wait a minute, but George qualified ahead of Lewis, and it was the first corner incident that really damaged his car, right?
You mean in the race itself?
In the race,
yes, he lost the lip, part of the front canard,
right,
on his front wing. Yes,
right, because George qualified third, Lewis was in 6th place. So I mean, yeah, I hear you. I think what really compromised them was that little incident in the beginning. On the first lap.
Because they had to change the nose after that.
Right. The car was damaged after that. So I think, for having all that, he recovered okay, to finish P7.
Okay.
He did.
All right.
But also to comment on what you said, that I'm sure that was a factor as well, because they always say it, even when they're going, when Circuit of the Americas was new. Everyone, they said it, okay, when they arrived the first time, it hasn't really been used, the track, they have to rubber it in, so, and they do that during qualifying. That's why Q1 and Q3, or practices, I should say, when you're doing the practice, whoever goes out early, it's basically like a cold track. It hasn't rubbered in. The times will drop the further in the session you go, because more rubber is being laid down. So, yeah, I'm sure that was a contributing factor.
Well, I think so, because everyone said they were getting better lap times going slower down the straights, not hitting the high speed track, right? Because they were scared about the corners and having to brake for the corners. So obviously they're not getting the grip that they were accustomed to in the last several years, because they usually just go flat out at Monza. It's never slow down on the speed trap to make better lap times. So I think the resurfacing played a major role. And they're probably going to look at that for next year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if memory serves me correct, Monza is a track where they go flat out for 80% of the track. So it's a true high speed track. So if they're already saying they have to slow down on the straights, because they're afraid of the cut. Right. So
and that's what happened to. I know we're going to get into it, but that's what happened to the new guy from Mercedes, right? He lost it.
Antonelli, that's the guy that crashed, right? Because he's young, right? Trying to prove himself too soon.
And the F2 cars are not as fast as the F1 cars, so he was trying to just floor it all out and see what happens. And if you notice his time on qualifying 3, he was beating everyone.
I didn't catch it. Okay.
So it was interesting when Toto Wolff said that when Hamilton said he was going to go to Ferrari. He said, "This gentleman here is my top choice, but he has to go through his due diligence of trying to get Max Verstappen and any other driver first to make sure that he's convinced that this is the next driver." I can tell right now that he's confident in this young 18-year-old.
Yeah, well, he gave him a stamp, right? Because he didn't. I think I heard that same message where Toto came back and said something encouraging after he wrapped the car up. So, that was the situation, right? So that was how things were. It came out. So it was pretty good. But so let's get into it. Let's talk about the race, the start, right, of the race. What were your thoughts on Piastri's pass on his teammate?
Fire. Hot. Burning hot.
Okay. All right, you going to elaborate a little bit? Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, he's not driving like I'm a number 2 driver. I'm here to take it to you. And he came fired up and went around the outside and made it stick. So they're gonna have a warm time over there at McLaren.
I believe he wouldn't have done that move if it wasn't for the race that Lando had to give back to Piastri, and they had to beg him to give it back. Him being a team player, and it was almost not given back to him, and he's like, okay, well, that's fine, but now we're gonna race. Whenever they said we can race, we gonna race. And I think it was about 4 episodes I told you Piastri is not playing.
No,
he is not playing.
No.
Lando doesn't watch out.
Right.
He can come past him on the points.
You're right. I agree. I agree. And I think it's may indeed turn out to be McLaren's drivers' championship to lose, right? Because we already know that Sergio is not up there to build a solid points tally, right? Or to help Max when needed. And already you see Lando and Oscar are at odds, right? And I agree with you, Simon. It started there. This were Ferrari during the Schumacher era. And by no means am I saying, and I don't no disrespect to Rubens. Rubens is a good driver as well. But if it were the Ferrari era or that mentality in McLaren, they would have had Lando. They would have given Lando the favorable pit that they did and kept him in front to build up. And if it were a case like this where Lando is third to Oscar, they would have had Lando close up or Oscar ease up so Lando could close up because they'd be going straight for the championship points, right? Because McLaren, if they utilize that cutthroat type mentality, they may be able to beat Red Bull. But it's not going to be easy now because you have two drivers that are racing each other, so they're gonna take points off of each other.
Exactly. Before you go, Ray, exactly my point, right? If you listen to the post-game interviews, especially Lewis says he knew that McLaren was running too hard. Why were they running too hard? Why? Because Piastri's like, I'm not giving up the spot.
Right.
And I know Lando is trying to come take it.
Right.
And if he knew Lando was going to ease back and reserve his tires, he would have did the same thing.
Exactly.
Ferrari took advantage of it.
Of course.
That's where they're both right now. Orlando missed that point a few races ago. And they're both going to have a sit down and say, hey, we lost that race because you two were competing against each other.
I don't necessarily put it down to the drivers. I'm saying the team messed that up because they are supposed to be managing the drivers. So what they dictate should go, but they're being loosey-goosey, blah, 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 and that creates that environment, and
Zach
once you have that in your team. Right.
No, Zach's team. Zach needs to step up and Zach needs to say, hey, this is what it is, because Zach got heat this weekend. I caught a piece of his interview with Rosberg.
But Zach, isn't it time to introduce a little bit of team orders, let's call it that way, into the papaya rules, as we've learned? Because look, that turn 4 now, you allowed Leclerc to come through. First of all, Lando almost spun. I mean, that was very close. It won't get closer than that. And then you allowed Leclerc to come through. And who knows, maybe that was exactly those 2.6 seconds. That's exactly, so it could have cost you the win.
That's exactly,
maybe.
Possibly.
Isn't it time to implement some rules here?
That's what we'll discuss, next week. We'll look at that because, unfortunately, getting Leclerc in the middle, could we have been able to pull away and then, the 3-4 seconds we lost to Leclerc by gain that then? So no, it's a fair question.
Dude, he flipped out. He was like, you have the opportunity to take this driver championship and you're throwing it away over this garbage about papaya rules where the papaya rules are going to hit each other, but everybody's like a number one thing, right? And he even alluded to that. He wasn't sure if inside the contract, if they're written in there to make sure that, because he's saying Weber is his manager, Piastri's manager. And Weber didn't like the fact that he was slated as a number 2 when he was racing, right? And they may have written something in the contract to say, well, he's not a number 2, he's a number 1 also, right? But at some point, Zach, who runs the team, needs to step up and say, yo, this is what we're going to do. For now, he's the guy that's leading in the points. Your role is to support him if he's ahead, right? And so that he can get that championship, so that we can get the maximum points, so that we can still get the team championship also. If he's not able to do that, then your role is to take over. That's what Zach has, because he got pushed on it. Him and Rosberg kind of went at it for a little bit in one of the interviews that I saw. That he got pushed, and he left it at, well, we're going to take it away this weekend and we'll have a discussion about it. But it's time to step up now and make it work, right? Because I agree with you. Third and second are the same amount of points, right? So they could have rolled around and let Piastri come back and give Lando the front. But I also agree with you. I think is what the shaming that Lando did with to Piastri is kind of what motivating Piastri to drive and further motivating him to drive in this way, right? That's what I'm thinking, because he shamed him publicly, right? If Lando just rolled back on the first request, I think everything would have been cool, right? right?
Yeah.
But the fact that he waited until almost like parking the car on the last corner of the last lap and say, "Come on through," that was very distasteful. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree, but I put the blame on McLaren again, because how do you give normally the lead car gets the preferential pit slot,
right?
And they gave it to Lando at that time. They should have given it to Oscar. And if they'd given it to Oscar, he should have pitted first. He would have exited first, and then everything would have worked its way back out. And they need to know the drivers they have. Listen, man, Oscar Piastri wants to be a world champion. You know, I don't
has the ability.
I don't blame the drivers. It's the team. The management is at fault, right? Because you need to come down hard to say this is what we want, but you're going to be fair. How you do away with the drivers going through that? Pit the lead car first. How you do away with that? You say, guys, we're starting the season. By the time we hit this point, whoever's ahead in points, we're backing them if they look like they have a good shot at the championship. So up until this race clean, race hard, you know, and see where we are. That's how you build a strategy. But I think it caught McLaren soon. I don't necessarily think they thought they were going to be this strong already, you know, or that they're fighting. So the rest of the management has to catch up.
I totally agree. I just think the Piastri right now is just stating until I'm getting orders to do something else, I'm racing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who it is. It was an excellent, stellar move he put on Lando in that first corner, those first couple of corners. And to the point where Lando was saying if I had broke or hit my brake 1 meter sooner, we probably would have crashed, or later he probably would have crashed. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Now you're just making excuses.
Yeah.
The guy took you on the corner and you couldn't take the lead back. Let's just give him his credit and let's just go forward.
Moving on.
I'll say this though. If you look at a lot of passes that are attempted in that corner, a great percent fail then pass, right? Because usually the guy that's on the inside has the corner. It's the guy on the outside has to take the escape road. So I agree with Lando that he had to brake judiciously to not hit it, right? So to make him have the space, right? Because you even saw that when Lando went back to throttle, the axle of the car got loose because the chassis wasn't settled yet. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But because of him having to tighten up on his corner, right?
But just real quick, who would have been at fault? If Lando hit him, who would have been at fault?
Probably would have been Oscar.
Yes, because he's on the outside.
Because Lando had more of the corner and closer in. Oscar was on the outside.
I'm going to roll this back and say, you know what? If you notice what Piastri did, he braked so late that before they went into the middle of the apex, before they got to the apex of the corner, his car was ahead.
Right.
Yeah. So if they go on based on the rules that they talked about with Lewis from back at Silverstone a couple years ago with him and Verstappen, right? Right. It was the onus was on Oscar to leave him room because on Lando to leave Oscar room because Oscar was ahead at the turn. Right. If you replay it, because I kind of watched it over and over just to see how do they fit two cars through there and not touch. Right. And so, that was my take on it. Is just McLaren. I agree. McLaren needs to come down and stop and talk to their boys and say this. They need to put some structure in it and say this is what we need to do. Because as Buxton said, they're going to throw it away. They're going
to throw it away.
Yeah.
It's reminding me of. Yeah. It's reminding me of when Lewis came on and Fernando at McLaren. It was a similar, McLaren could have won the title that year. Either Lewis or Alonso could have, but they started fighting each other, just like how Oscar and Lando are fighting each other right now. And Kimi got it. Okay, I'm gonna go. So we'll see.
Yeah, because I want to talk about. I give props to Charles.
Yeah,
with his driving, right? He sucked because of all of that melee. He was able to sneak in, right? And they, he took over with some of the strategy calls from the wall, right? And said, because they said they were thinking a two-stopper, right? But when he came out on the tires, he saw that the tires weren't. When he got in the open air, it wasn't degrading as much.
Right.
And so he, took the run on it, but still he had to. You could tell that the people on the wall were nervous, right? Because you heard the one communication where he kind of rebuffed the guy on the wall and said, like, leave me alone, let me drive the car. I'm feeling what's up, I know what's up. You know what I'm saying? Type of deal. Right. So I give him props for his drive today for this race because this weekend, because he had to feel the car, because I saw an episode from Peter Windsor where they had I'm not sure if it was from F1 or Peter Windsor, but they're talking about how he had to keep the car balanced so it wouldn't understeer coming out of the corner, right? So he had to do smooth inputs, time when he went to throttle, so that outside tire would scrape against the pavement, as he tries to go back to throttle.
Right.
So I give him a lot of adulation for what he did for this one, because he worked it, and again, his people, Ferrari people, uplifted him, right? Gave him a similar thing like what happened in Lewis, where the spectators uplift the driver and let the driver, even get to a higher level during the race, right? And he drove it, and he drove it really well, right? Even when he was coming back through the field, he was on his game today. I have to say that.
Yeah, he was. He drove, and to say when I forgot who said it about just driving, it's not just what you just said, that he had to manage balancing the car so it wouldn't understeer, because it was the front tires that were going to give out. So you don't want to accelerate that. So you have to adjust your driving style. It's a craft. But he drove well. But I will say this: if there were maybe 2 more laps, Oscar would have been on top of him, because he closed. It was 11 seconds, and by the time it ended, it was like 2.6 seconds or such between Charles and Oscar. So that's how hard he was coming, but he ran out of time.
Yeah, you're right. I think the over the radio to Leclerc was, you have to adjust your rear brake, left brake balance. And Leclerc was like, you can say it 10 times, and if I don't say nothing back or do the adjustment, that means leave me alone.
No,
Okay.
Okay.
I don't care how many times you say it. If I'm not adjusting it, that means I got it under control. So good. I mean, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Ferrari. Yeah. Of course, I had to shout out Donald Osborne after the race, but because he's a Ferrari guy. But he's good for Ferrari to win it at your home. I think Leclerc won both Italian races this year, right? So he should be very proud. Now, what's going to happen next year? But we'll talk about that next year. But we'll see what's going to happen for Ferrari in Italy and Monza next year for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, we'll see what goes on for next year. But they did a good job, and I don't know if you guys caught the radio communication from Max's wall when they told Max to hold up Lando as he was coming back through, right? And you got the call and the same thing from the Ferrari wall to hold up Piastri when he was coming through, right?
So he asked a question, right? It was a question. He said, "Hey, do you want me to race him?" He didn't say hold up. So let's just make sure that
that's true.
Whatever.
It's not a conspiracy. What that means. You want me to race? Well, we all know what it means, but we got to make sure words matter, man.
Yeah.
Hold up. Because when Red Bull was on top, they just moved over and let him roll by. Yeah. You understand? Especially when they're down all the time. So basically, what he asked him was, you want me to hold them up? That's what he asked him. We ain't no fool. We've been here before. He's like, okay, he tried to do it the politically correct way, but we all know what that means, right? And he held, tried to hold him back, because as a team player, that's what you do for your teammate, right? Because you hold him back, you get your team player to, push out further, and you burn more laps, so that the possibility for him to reach your door is less likely. Right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the politically correct way to say it. I think it was the less penalty way of saying it, right? He making sure, because if he had said, I'm going to hold him up, then that would have been a penalty. But if you say, hey, you want me to race him? Of course, right? Because it's Lando. Lando is coming after his points, coming after his championship. Right.
Those stories.
He has to hold him back. He has to prevent him from getting in the first place, because then now that's 18 points he can gain on him, right? So he didn't really hold up anybody else if you looked at it. So
no, he did not. No, he did not. You are right. No, he did not. He did not.
So
just a special one.
Lando's coming from now. He's exactly 70 points behind.
Yeah,
it was 77 last week. Now it's 70 points behind.
Yeah.
I mean, 8 races to go. One DNF can really put Red Bull in trouble and Max in trouble.
Yeah. Or if they keep performing like they did at this race, they're done.
And if Ferrari has found something, and they still haven't, they're going to be 4th or 5th, 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
And McLaren has found something.
Yeah, they found something and are consistent, because once again, Lewis made the comment he doesn't know where the pace went. So that's odd when they're saying they don't know. It's hit or miss. That's a problem. That's almost going back to the porpoising era.
I think deep down Lewis is like half happy, half sad. He's like, keep it up, Ferrari, because next year I want the same car.
That's possible. That's possible.
Keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing.
Because I even saw a commentary made on the McLaren strategy, and he said that McLaren put themselves in that situation where they couldn't run on that top. They needed a second stop because they pushed so hard, right? Because I think McLaren went forward with the idea that yes, it's going to be a 2-stop. So if you say it's going to be a 2-stop race, then you're going to push, because at some point you're going to flip to the other tire, right?
That's getting back to my statement earlier about they were racing each other. Why were they pushing so hard?
Well, because they wanted, each driver wanted to be number one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yes, exactly. So whether it was a 2-stop or 1-stop, they were going to wear out those tires.
Yeah, because that's why they brought Lando in first, to see how they could figure out to get him in front of It's a race team divided, right? Because Lando's guys are doing their thing to make sure their guy comes first, and Piastri's guys are doing their thing to make sure their guy comes first, right? So that's kind of that's how I take it, because I agree with Ralph that usually when the front driver is in front, you pull him in first. Let him change so that he can get back out on on the race to get back up there, and then bring the second guy after, right? Because you follow if he's even third, the guy that is in second, you cover that guy, but you get your lead guy out first, right? So I think it was a divided shop that was going on. So
or even in that case, front guy, yes, you're doing it that way. But if you have your championship leader, if it was already discussed and set up, that would be the driver that would get. Then it would have played the way it did. Lando would have gotten the preferred slot, and Oscar would have just had to slot in behind it, right? But yes, I think it. Again, I'm going to say it. If it comes that close, McLaren lost it more or less than Red Bull won it. If it comes really close, because the management needs to be there. But let me ask you, what about I don't know. What else in the race?
Well, the only thing I think we touched on it was the K-Mag incident where he's banned from he's banned now from the next race. And I believe he finished in the points this time around also.
Yes, he did.
Right?
10
place. Because he was bumper carring everybody in the race. I was watching it, man, and I was saying to myself, that's the third person he's hit in this race. I don't know if he was just having issues. I don't know if that's his mentality, but I just thought he had a bad race. I thought the surface, everything was going on. It could have been multiple things, but to get banned, I didn't see that coming.
And as they say, he's the first since Roman Grosjean to have been banned for a race
12 years ago. So what happens now? Does anybody know what happens now when you get banned? Is that banned for the rest of the season?
No, just from that
race.
Just that race, just the next race, and then he's back. So that's a more severe warning. Like, hey,
no, what I've heard and what I've read even on their channel was that the new guy that was coming in next year, I can't remember his name right now for some reason, is coming in, is going to race next week.
Yes,
right, to fill a spot, right?
So
he's just banned for the next race,
right?
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
But the team is in charge, so they may feel as a result of this, you never know. They, right, Ollie Berman. They may say, hey, we want him to run one more race, you know?
Oh, keep Berman in, you mean?
Yeah. Depending on how he does, if he comes in and he does well and he races clean and he races hard, they may say, all right, you know, Kevin, stand down.
It's a cheap way of getting him ready for next year, right? Because they don't really have to pay him until next year.
Yeah. Well,
they got to pay
also,
him. I'm assuming they got to pay him something. But it's probably the league minimum or something like that for the.
Well, even beyond that, it would be he's getting valuable experience. Like if he comes in and he races hard and he races well, they may just say, hey, we want to run him, you know, in the next one. You know, we want to see how he does there. That's a possibility.
Well, I want to just comment on another thing real quick here is that, again, we lost another American driver from F1, right?
Yeah.
Logan Sargent's gone. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, before that was Scott Speed.
Right.
You know, and I forgot who was before that. It seems like Mario Sr. was the only one back in the day to like withstand that machine, to be there from the American side of the house. So it's in a way I understand what the team had to do, but in a way it's sad to see that it's almost just saying that, you know, we're not producing good enough drivers that can withstand that environment, right? That's just my take on it. I might be wrong, but it was just sad to see that. He got dismissed.
Yeah, you know, sad to hear that. How do I say it? I mean, because hey, I can't do what these guys do, so you know, I don't want to be throwing bricks at them. But just looking at it historically, he came, he gave it a shot. That doesn't mean he's not going to be successful in another series. But yeah, this F1, people coming into it, it's interesting that like Ollie Berman, he might be the next hot guy, right? Because already he's showing it, right? He's showing it. And it's kind of like that. Like you see them come in. Look at Mick Schumacher. I would have loved for Mick to be strong. And he was strong in the lower categories, but he came in here and couldn't for whatever reason. This is it's like throwing you to the wolves, man. And you got to be really strong in your mind and everything. So
I got two things to say. I believe, just like NFL quarterbacks, that the ones that are recruited high in the top 5, top in the first round, are excellent quarterbacks coming out of college. Just like Patrick Mahomes, just like Joe Montana, all the greats, they come out of college and they go to a team that believes in them, provides them 100% support, and say, we got your back. Be yourself. Don't worry about everything else. Don't worry about the media. Be yourself. Fling the football and you'll be all right. And those cats succeed. Right. There's also people like Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson. When Lamar Jackson came out, he didn't get all the support he was supposed to get, but he had to earn it. Right. And if you don't go to the right team, I don't care. I don't care if you're going to the Lakers or you're going to Orlando Magic as far as, you know, notoriety is concerned. You don't have the right coach, right manager, right everything else, right team, the right engineers, right aerodynamicists. Stole your word. Chief engineer that supports you. I don't care how good you are.
Right.
You're going to drop in the standings, right? Yeah. And I have a feeling that he was a great driver, and he's probably, from a confidence standpoint, has been shot. I don't know what did it. I don't know if it was the team. I don't know if it was the pit. I don't know if it was the engineers. I don't know if it was a track. I don't know if it was a race. Because sometimes you've seen great race cars drivers lose it after a major accident. And something happened along the way that he's lost his confidence. I bet you we can't even hold a candle to him.
No, I know I can't.
Or any F2 driver at this point, right? Yeah. And the second thing I have to say is that just watch out for a 13-year-old. His name is Truly Adams. He's going to He's in Formula 4 qualified right now. You watch. He's going to be, in my opinion, in the next 4 years, he's going to be a shining light.
Okay, so we'll look out for him.
Well, on that note, we're going to bring it to a close, right?
Predictions.
Predictions.
Sorry. Yes, my bad.
Yeah, we got to do a prediction, man.
Yeah. So, what's your prediction for the upcoming race? Where's the upcoming race?
It's
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan. Yes.
Qatar.
this is an easy one as far as who's going to be first and second. You would have thought it would have been easy for this race too, but McLaren, I have a feeling that it's going to be Piastri or Lando first or second. And I'm curious about Ferrari. You know what? I'm going to give Ferrari some love. I have yet to give Ferrari some love. They've put on their new upgrades this week, and they've shown that they can compete. I don't know if they're ready to take the mantle yet, but they competed this weekend, both cars, both drivers. And I think Sainz was maybe 2 laps away from coming in third, in my opinion, maybe 3 laps. So he did drive the car well as well. So I'm going to give them love. I'm going to give Leclerc third place, Ferrari third place, and Mercedes fourth. I'm still not even messing with Red Bull. I think Red Bull has shot themselves in the foot, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think it's going to be McLaren again. 1, 2. I'm not sure of the order. My money would probably be on Lando because he's going to want to, especially after this, he's going to want to stamp some dominance out there. So I'll say it. I think it's Lando P1 and Oscar P2, followed by, I'm going to throw a wild one in, George Russell P2. And I'm a Lewis fan, but I don't know. I think George is getting the better car for these last few races. So I'll take a page out of race.
I think Lewis has checked out a little bit too. I think he's checked out. He wants to win. He wants to compete.
Yeah.
But he's checked out of Mercedes a little bit, in my opinion.
He's a racer. I don't think he'd ever give up, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little conspiracy theorist. Maybe Ray's rubbing off on me.
Instead of 110, maybe he's giving it 100. I'm not. I think he's checked out a little bit.
I think instead of maybe having a car that's 100, he might have one that's about like 90. 90.
Here's your car, Lewis. Do what you want with it. Go ahead.
George has one that's 105.
I'm going to say that Zach's going to ignore everybody's pressure that's saying he needs to make a call. And I'm going to say Piastri is going to be number 1. Lando will be number 2. And I will throw it up there and I'll say there's going to be a Ferrari in the mix. I can't really say if it's going to be Sainz or if it's going to be Charles. But I think a Ferrari is going to be in the mix, right? And fourth will be Russell. Yeah, that's my take. That's my take on it. I don't think Zach's gonna. I don't know. I just have a feeling that he won't acquiesce to the pressure on the outside to say they need to make a choice and pick a number 1.
Right.
I just feel that way.
Okay.
I'm gonna put an asterisk to it. For this week.
Mm-hmm.
All things being equal, all things being professional, I stick with my picks. Okay. However, those two can take themselves out the race easily.
That's true.
That's going to be my asterisk. If they take themselves out the race,
then Max is back in the game, and he's
in the game. So we'll see.
Yep. And hey, I would think Max is kind of hoping that happens.
He's probably over there poking Piastri. You going to take that from Lando? You going to take that, man?
All righty. So on that note, I want to say thanks for everyone for tuning in. Right? I think we had a very good discussion on this race. And we're asking that, leave a comment as well as, like, share, and subscribe so you can keep up with all things the fellas. All right, we're out.
See you next week.
Later.